Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for taking time to join us today. Business leaders across all industries have prioritized growth, innovation, and time to market. And as we all here understand, the responsibility to deliver all of that lies on your shoulders, the technology team. In fact, in a recent survey, 94% of the CIOs indicated that 2 out of 3 business priorities are dependent on them. In fact, they understand migrating to cloud, adopting new architectures, and building cloud-native services is the only way they can jumpstart growth and accelerate time to market. However, 80% of them have also reported that despite of having moved some of their application to the cloud, they have struggled to achieve the same level of business agility and benefits that they initially desired. In today's session, we'll understand why application modernization is critical to business innovation and how Anthos, Google Cloud's new open platform, will help them build and deploy new applications simply, flexibly, and securely.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us today by removing time from your busy schedule. I hope you are all staying indoors and staying safe. I am Mehul Jani from Google Cloud team. I'm a customer engineer with a focus on application modernization. I work with customers in planning and implementing their application modernization projects to drive business growths and benefits. Let's start with the presentation. Today, we will talk about application modernization with Anthos. We are going to talk about how Anthos enables organizations to achieve digital transformation and faster time to market, and a cost-efficient deployment of applications without vendor lock-in. Business leaders across industries are prioritizing growth, innovation, and time to market. And as you all here understand, the responsibility to deliver this increasingly being placed on shoulders of technology teams. In fact, in a recent study, 94% of the CIOs indicate that at least 2 out of the top 3 business priorities depend upon them. They acknowledge that migrating to the cloud, adopting new application architectures, and building cloud-native services will help them jumpstart growth and accelerate time to market. However, 80% of them report, despite having migrated a portion of their applications, they have struggled to achieve the desired level of agility and business benefits. Now, why is that the case? The case turns out to be that technology teams fail at transformation due to lack of flexibility and agility in their technology stacks. They have very specific requirements of multiple proprietary technology stacks, and that happens both on-prem and in the cloud, which makes it difficult to manage, and it becomes really cumbersome. On top of it, there are underutilized resources. Typically, in an infrastructure, you have the whole data center, and we carve out separate areas of the data center for a specific bunch of applications, but they are not as utilized. Increased development, update, and refresh cycles are also one of the issues that come together for failing of the transformation, and largely in the people domain. Now, it is like this, where your data center operations is one team, but your cloud operations turns out to be another team, and they are not; those skills are not transferable. That makes like retention of talent and hiring for new talent for every new technology stack doesn't seem to be very practical and feasible. At the onset, there are legacy systems which basically hinder the complete business agility. And at the same time, they tend to have an effect of consuming the majority of the IT spend. Now, these legacy apps are usually Java and .NET. which are based on highly tightly coupled architectures and messy integrations. If you remember in the earlier slide, we spoke about uh, your data center is carved out, and that is for a specific application. Now, if you need a similar kind of a setup for, say, an HA requirement, we carve out another section of the architecture, or we tend to go ahead and integrate both of them. Now, scaling them becomes inefficient, where my applications are actually tied to a particular type of the hardware, where, say, a Java application would require operating systems to be configured in a specific way. There are changes in the operating system level too. There are libraries that are required at the application system or at the operating system level. These are the kinds of tightly coupled architecture points which come into play. Even for that matter, the integration point of view, they are reaching out to systems which are not really very easy to communicate. Maybe they have very fixed architecture that there is going to be one communication link to backend systems, for example. Now, there is no ways in which I can achieve cost efficiency by using a different architecture infrastructure model. Say if I want to scale the architecture, if you want to go ahead and put it onto a different platform so that you can save on the cost, it hinders that particular process. On top of it, say when the application was introduced into the whole ecosystem, the design of the security and compliance was not that high. But over a period of time, we have seen how the security industry grows. And the requirements for approval and compliance requirements change. Now, because of those tight integrations which sit on the application but require changes all the way till the layer of operating system, it becomes difficult for making these changes happen. It is not really very easy. On top of it, any application change requires a system level change, which makes the whole process a very cumbersome process to begin with. At the end, it does impact the quality of service, where a case of agility of shipping new features faster to the customer is practically slowed down, and it is because of the technical depth. These legacy systems tend to have a burnout effect due to a very specific requirements for the infrastructure, security, and management point of view, where all these applications are not basically applications, but the complete stack right from the application layer to the hardware, making the whole thing very, very cumbersome. Let's look at a case of a sizing, where if we go ahead and look at a scenario of why are we doing this, the business case, so to say, then how does it look like in an example or an illustration of how does cost saving and benefits comes together in a software company with largely a Java landscape, providing functionality to end customers. We see 4 large components, and how do they trend in the period of 3 years? Cost of Anthos investments, which starts in year 1, and we are looking at cost of refactoring or migration due to modernization. And we also have a few other entries, which are the outcome, which shows revenue as a result of improved mean time to recover, or MTTR, along with a faster feature shipping to the end customers. Now, the viewpoint around this turns out to be that as you are investing into Anthos, and as you are investing into making those changes of refactoring and migration due to modernization, there is a equivalent output with the growth in revenue as well. And that is by the result of things like MTTR, which is mean time to recover, where you are able to make changes to the system, but at the same time, you are able to deliver new features to the end customer. And at the end of the day, there is a cost relief due to the reduction of those technical depth and reduction of the rework. Now, Imagine a case where in a previous scenario, we were talking about the agility point of view. If I am able to decouple my application from the infrastructure layer as a very simplistic viewpoint, I'm able to move my application anywhere. I'm able to run it in the cloud or run it in a multi-cloud environment or run it in hybrid for that matter. And within hybrid, I'm able to jump machines from, I'm not constrained to operate on a specific bunch of servers. I'm able to move around in a very agnostic way. This makes a very strong case because it helps from the operational standpoint and it reduces the effect of technical debt. Now let's look at a very specific example here, and it's drilled down to the level where we are talking about Java being the most prevalent language of in enterprise apps. Java and .NET, by the way, form around 85% of an enterprise's landscape. Now, in a very simplistic case, if we just look at Java app and move that app to running as a container, we see around 37% total cost of ownership savings almost instantaneously. Like the way the example that I was talking about previously, where say if I have an app and I'm able to move it across my data center in any corner, I get that flexibility and I'm able to manage my systems in a more efficient way. The larger, and it's easier said than done, but it is disconnecting your hardware, your application layer from your hardware is the key point here. Further on, if I'm able to go ahead and bring an automation to this software pipeline and refactoring those applications, we see an additional 78% total cost of ownership savings. So this creates like a whole business case around how do we go ahead and look and what kind of possible benefits can arise out of this. So let's look at few of our Anthos customers and their experiences. The first one turns out to be Kaiser Compressors. It's a world's leading manufacturer of compressed air products. It's using Anthos for increased production efficiencies and time to market. They are using Anthos as their platform of choice to deploy and manage their SAP workloads. Anthos gives them a unified management view of their hybrid and edge deployment. For one of our other customers, that's HSBC, one of the top 10 largest banks in the world, a managed cloud environment that reduces complexity and cost of big data analytics is an essential to its hybrid cloud strategy. They needed a consistent platform to deploy and manage containers on both on-prem systems and in the cloud. Google Cloud's software-based approach for managing hybrid environments provided them with an innovative, differentiated solution that was able to be deployed quickly for their customers. They also told us that because Kubernetes has become an industry standard, it was natural for them to adopt Kubernetes engine, that is GKE, on GCP to reduce the risk and cost of their deployments. Now, what do we do? Because we've spoken about the legacy issue, legacy systems issue, but we need to have some solution around it. And to solve the problems of legacy system, we applied the scale and innovation of Google to application modernization. And the solution sits right there in front of you. It's called as Anthos. So we are looking at multiple steps on the way we discussed it earlier. We are talking about efficient usage of infrastructure. As we carved out different areas in the data center to run your applications, we could understand that there were some areas of the applications which were not used that efficiently. And that's why for every app was siloed into its own area. And that made it difficult. Now, if there is a way for us to pack up more applications into one bunch of servers, it makes it more efficient uses of the infra. And that's not the only case. We embrace open source and we provide tools to our operators to manage the system at scale. Instead of managing one machine or two machines or a bunch of specifically for an application, it's better that they are able to manage these systems at scale. The second point being around how do we go ahead and leverage both your existing and new infrastructures. App modernization is not supposed to be siloed into a specific area of your on-prem or being in the cloud. It needs to be in such a way where it is able to use all kinds of environments across the board. The fourth being release software at a faster pace. Now, I think so we have spoken about this earlier, but decouple application and infrastructure, increase the speed of deployment and increasing delivery. And there is no conversation that ends without security. Ensure safety and reliability. Monitoring the app's performance and security. How does one app communicate with the other? Do we have the right credentials to do it? Do we have the right policies in place to take care of it? On top of it, ensuring consistency. You are working with your systems in the cloud. Those should be correctly applied of what you have defined on your on-prem systems. And all of this is possible when you are able to manage everything from a single point of view and resolve issues and vulnerabilities fairly quickly. What's so magical? How do we do it? What's so special about Anthos? Those turn out to be around the 4 pillars. First pillar being open. We've spoken about decoupling the application and infrastructure and with open source, ensuring that there is no lock-in. And this comes from an idea where Google has been a leader in Kubernetes contributions. And this turns out to be very, very important because the central concept around this is being open and not tied to any particular lock-in. The second pillar is hybrid. Consistent platform capabilities, both on-prem and in multi-cloud, and essentially without lock-in. We have gone ahead and released support for on-premises and AWS at this point in time. Azure is coming soon. And this goes back to the points that we are trying to hint on since the beginning. It means disconnect the business from the underlying infra. Focus on business innovation, not the underlying infra. And the point of view where moving to cloud takes time, staying hybrid with your current investments is more helpful. Fourth, coming from the point of view of automation. Repeatable infrastructure and application software processes. Self-reconciling infrastructure. Now, both of them come from an idea where my infrastructure can be made again and again in whichever environment I create. The process to be followed is exactly the same. Try to do it in Amazon, try to do it in Google Cloud, or try to do it in on-prem or your co-located data centers. You follow the exact same steps, and exact same steps yield the same kind of an infrastructure, like infrastructure as a code with open source tooling. This particularly becomes important in the point of view where it is less error prone and it saves on costs. And from the people domain point of view, it is a better utilization of people. And the final pillar is fast. Accelerate app innovation with a low friction development cycles. Convert virtual machines to containers quickly and safely to kickstart application modernization. And this is possible because of the scale. The more that you are able to apply this particular movement of modernization, doing hundreds of apps together, is going to be beneficial. Now we are going to talk about a little about how Anthos addresses digital transformations, strategic priorities. There is obviously reasons for you to go ahead and look at application modernization. The first one is reduce cost. Reduces, so the way Anthos actually impacts in this particular area is It reduces proprietary costs, for example, application middleware, by using app densification and shifting the focus more towards open source. It reduces operation costs. It basically brings in a higher efficiency operational model. It reduces infrastructure costs. Same to the first point, and that it achieves via app densification and being used in multiple clouds. Second turns out to be around the security area. It increases software asset security, such as security vulnerabilities detection and remediation. Increase visibility into applications performance and stability via dashboards and metrics. Decrease time to resolve security issues by basically automated fixed deployments, and achieve like a 75% improvement in productivity in tasks related to security. It brings in faster time to market, increasing software releases for your customers, basically by the way of continuous deployment. It reduces deployment lead time by manner of automation and increases market access, making your application more towards infrastructure flexibility. And yes, higher quality of service. It brings in an angle of reduced deployment risk and reduced failure rates. It increases consistency across on-prem and cloud environments. It brings in reduced resilience on a single infrastructure provider. Reduce the time it takes to restore service incidents or defect that impacts users. Fundamentally, Anthos brings Google's innovation and best practices as a service. Anthos is a Google Cloud's new open platform that lets you run your app anywhere, simply, flexibly, and securely. Embracing open standards, Anthos lets you run your application unmodified on an on-prem hardware in Vespets or in the cloud, and is based on cloud services platform that we announced earlier. Anthos is 100% software-based solution. You can quickly get up and running on your existing hardware with no forced stack refresh. Anthos leverages open APIs, giving you the freedom of modernize at any place, anytime, and at your own pace. Because Anthos is based on GKE, our managed Kubernetes service, you automatically get the latest security patches and feature updates. It looks at a point of innovative, hybrid, and multi-cloud platform. Only Anthos enables application deployment and management on-premise across cloud with 100% software solution and no hardware lock-in. It becomes as a versatile solution because infrastructure is abstracted away and focus on building applications and not managing infrastructure. And last but not the least, it avoids the lock-in with open source. And that fares in from a point of number one contributor to cloud native computing foundation and as a creator of Kubernetes. Our growing ecosystem of partners are also working with us to create innovative solutions as extensions to Anthos. Application service partners like Splunk, Elastic, Cloudbees, and GitLab provide common services, including DevOps, networking, security, and storage. So our customers can continue to use their favorite ISV solutions with Anthos. Platform partners like HP, Cisco, and Dell are building Anthos-validated designs to deliver turnkey solutions directly to customers. System integrators like Deloitte, Accenture, Anthos, and Arctic are working with customers to modernize their applications on platforms with Anthos. And our channel partners now have a broader set of cloud and software services from Google to service and sell to customers. For our next steps, we would recommend to schedule like an application assessment workshop with your Google team to begin planning your modernization journey, starting with your Java environment, and build a use business case together for application modernization. The, the point that I would like to go ahead and stress about is just give me the point that I would love to go ahead and stress on is we look at application modernization from multiple perspectives. The idea turns out to be that we are looking at how fast are you able to deploy your applications, how fast that deployment can be done, how quickly and frequently can be done. How do I, once there are any failures, how do I go ahead and take care of the fact that those changes or those issues can be resolved quickly? That, in other words, it is called as the mean time to recover. And the last bit is my change fail rate. This all branches out from the state of DevOps reports, which is very useful as far as the assessment is concerned of where are you exactly. And it brings in a very strong point that your infrastructure should be kept separate than that of your application. The more there is a decoupling between them, the faster you are able to move with a more agile way. It is the third way of DevOps. And with that, I would like to close my call here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rajat. I'm a customer engineering manager working for Google, Bangalore. Today we've got Bharat from Nives Solution. At Nives, he heads up cloud practice, and he works with a lot of clients in the space of IT modernization, app modernization as well. So nice to have you, Bharat.
Hey, thanks, Rajat, and hello all. Again, apologies for the quarantine look. So yeah, I'll just quickly give an introduction of what Nives Solutions is all about and what we have been doing. So predominantly, we're a company and we are about 130 odd engineering team, and we've been helping our clients in three main areas. That's the application modernization, infrastructure modernization, and the data modernization, right? So what I mean by that is predominantly we've been helping companies which have their legacy workloads, be it applications, be it their ETL processes or the other workloads on-prem, and which basically kind of follow a monolithic architecture and have a lot of challenges. So we've been helping them modernize these applications and host them on Google Cloud so that they get the benefits of the agility, the dynamic scalability, as well as the performance optimization and cost optimization. So that's predominantly what we have been doing, along with building cloud native applications and helping our clients.
Cool. That's really helpful. So it's good to understand what Nives is primarily involved in. Would you like to just talk us through a little bit around how you go about working with your customer? How do you kind of work through the landscape and evolve, help them evolve their landscape?
Yeah, sure, Rajat. So basically, it starts with an analysis of their current ecosystem and understanding their challenges, right? Predominantly, the challenges that we hear about are very tight coupling with their underlying infrastructure, a very monolithic architecture where doing any kind of new changes or introducing any new features to the market takes a very long time. So they have a very long product release cycle time. And of course, the kind of OpEx that comes with the increase in the load, right? So they're not able to basically scale dynamically. So these are predominantly the high areas of challenges which our clients address to us, right? So we go ahead and analyze the systems, and then we kind of give them a to-be architecture or a solution where their applications are broken down into smaller chunks, what we call as microservices, and then how these can be containerized and then kind of deployed on cloud, right, using containers, and how we can use the Google's managed Kubernetes engine to basically monitor all these or orchestrate all these microservices, and how all these pieces can kind of work together, right? So this gives them, and because we are building microservices and APIs, these can be reused to build other similar products faster, where the delta or the difference is hardly about 20 to 30%, right? So these things kind of come together there, and they will be able to release features more faster to the market. And of course, with the Google Cloud, being highly available, they also get the dynamic scalability. That's the auto scaling takes care of, increasing and decreasing the resources required to run the customer's applications dynamically.
Cool. So that's very helpful. It'd be also useful to understand a little bit the kind of customers you've been working with, right? And again, app modernization sounds like something that has mostly been in the context of digital natives and companies that are modern in that sense. But can you give us some examples of companies that have legacy background, have a long legacy of building and managing their IT estate, and how they've evolved through this app modernization journey?
Sure, Rajat. So the one customer or the one client that comes to my mind immediately is LIC Housing Finance, right? They're one of the largest lenders in India, and they have had their legacy applications, where people apply for loans. In many cases, they can do it over the websites online, but for the processing part of it, they still need to visit their branches and get the approval process done. So what we did is basically we built a cloud native application following the modern architecture that I was talking about, which has these microservices and containers. And then this is hosted on Google Cloud, and the app is available on Play Store, right? So now what's happening, especially in times like COVID, their users and customers are able to kind of go ahead and apply for the loans for whatever property they're buying by entering a couple of basic details and uploading a few documents, which we are even using the Vision API there to kind of do the OCR and read all the fields from your documents. And people are able to get their pre-approved loan offers in minutes, right? And this system is integrated to their legacy system, which is hosted on their on-prem for the processing part of it. Right, that's one example. Another example I would like to state is, we've been working with one of the, a big private bank in India, where they have automated their, customer onboarding process, right? So they have multiple products, whether it's, savings account, whether it's fixed deposit. They have kind of multiple apps for all these things, where now we have kind of built a single digital platform, again, with the modernized architecture. And these are all hosted on Google Cloud, where within minutes, your eKYC is done, your PAN validation, other validation, etc. And the savings account is kind of ready for you to start transacting in a matter of minutes. Again, these talk back to their gateway APIs through the gateway channeling to the processes or to the systems which exist on their core. Right, so these are the two examples that I can give where we have kind of helped them attain their business values and reach the targets by modernizing their applications.
So that's really good. I mean, it's a really good example of the benefit of app modernization can be realized with companies of both traditional and modern outlook in that sense. So that's fantastic. It's what comes to mind is in terms of building out that architecture. Right, the underlying cloud provider, the underlying capabilities play a very important role. So, what made you choose Google Cloud as a cloud provider to build the basis of the infrastructure?
I'd rather quote my happy customers here, right? So when it comes to security, Google is the best in class, right? So the infrastructure that we are using, in order to build the applications for our customers on Google Cloud is the same infrastructure that basically Google uses to build their products, right? So it has all the kind of the compliance, be it HIPAA compliance, be it your ISO compliances, be it encrypting your data, which is both at rest and at transit. The whole security aspects of it is covered. There are also within the GCP ecosystem, there are tools like Cloud Armor, Cloud Identity, and it also comes with the identity access management features, where you will have a robust security around your applications at all the layers, be it network, be it application, be it data, right? That's the first thing which is very attractive to our customers. The second piece is the managed services that Google Cloud provides, right? Where the customers don't have to bother about the infrastructure at all, or it's scaling or scaling up or scaling down, right? They just have to focus on the features which are the need of the hour, and they can build them very quickly with the CI/CD pipeline setup, and then faster than the competitors, right? And the third part is the hybrid capability which Google Cloud brings in. You can have a platform like Anthos, which is going to manage, which is like a control room, which will manage your workloads, which could be either on your on-prem or they could be on your cloud, right? So there is a single place from where you can control all your applications and workloads, which is a very hybrid model. So these are the key features where we have seen, where our clients really, love Google Cloud for that. And the other aspect is, of course, the pay as per the usage. So you don't pay for anything that you don't use, right? So of course, while you do a commit, you do get some discount, but even if you don't want to commit, you still have an option to actually pay per second of the usage. Right. And apart from that, there is also a GCP calculator available where even before you kind of build your applications and deploy based on the size and based on the load, you will know what is your spend going to look like. So that's pretty accurate so far for us.
That's great. Thanks for that, talking us through some of the capabilities that Google Cloud has to offer. And I think this is a very practical aspect of being able to understand the cost impact versus the value that you get out of it. So that's really helpful. Thank you for that, Bharat. And thank you for taking time to talk us through the details of this.
Thank you. Thanks, Rajat. And thanks, folks. Stay safe. Cheers.
All right, we're back now. I hope you guys enjoyed this session and back with some questions. So feel free to add some questions in the watch box below. Right. So, in the meantime, while we wait for some other questions to come up, we just talk about a few things that we've heard some people talk about. So we've heard the references of Dora during the presentation and in other references of the blog post as well. So just take a few minutes to talk about what Dora is and how organizations can leverage what it has to offer. So it is our framework to analyze the level of engineering maturity that organizations have. And we look through the various engineering practices they follow across the build, dev, test, and all the best practices that we're aware of, and grade them according to the level of maturity, and kind of helps you create some very actionable insights around what those metrics look like, and kind of help you come up with recommendations and next steps and actions so that you can actually build out a comprehensive plan to increase the overall engineering maturity around it. In terms of how does it apply for app modernization, it is very much in line to how the overall development cycle for app modernization works. So particularly for containerization, CI/CD, all of these things are kind of part of the ecosystem, and being able to automate that overall process helps you change the overall process and be able to generate insights and metrics, which will then feed into the overall feedback loop and give you some sort of assessment of your overall engineering quality and help you make progress around that. So one of the other areas that we've seen being talked about is the difference between the containerization process and app modernization itself. So these two things are, so containerization is part of the process of the app modernization journey itself. and it shouldn't be looked at in isolation. So the idea of containerization is to be able to encapsulate your application along with the runtime environment around it, and be able to run it as a unit and then scale it up depending on the requirement. But that alone in itself isn't really something that will uh, you know, address the overall requirement of building and running an application. And you need a lot of cross-cutting concerns across the various applications, things like authentication, logging, debugging, profiling, those sort of things. And the overall app modernization journey itself enables those capabilities and helps you build that ecosystem so that as you work across various containerized versions of application and put them in that ecosystem and run them, you get rich set of metrics around how your application is functioning. But also from an architectural point of view, it allows you to have focused areas of effort across the components of your application stack where a need for scale is required, and you can scale in individual parts as and when you require. So there's another question that we saw recently around compatibility of Anthos with C# applications. So again, there depends on the context of the C# application being talked about. One of the things is whether it's leveraging the open source .NET Core, and if it is built on that and can be containerized, then it can run. Having said that, we do have support for Windows worker nodes in early stages at the moment. So if you do have Windows application, please reach out to us and we can look at how we can containerize that. But it's very contextual in that sense. Thanks, Padme. While we wait for other questions to come in, here's a common theme around at what stage of my business should I plan for a multi-cloud strategy. Now, the idea of being able to evolve your technology roadmap is not new. And typically, you would have a pre-existing estate of your technology components either on another cloud provider or on-prem. And as you leverage cloud providers based on their core capabilities, you would very quickly have a situation where you would have components being deployed in multiple cloud providers based on where you see the where you see individual values being delivered. And as a result, your landscape would no longer be limited to a data center or a single place, could be spread across. And for you to be able to manage that estate across multiple environments, multiple cloud providers, you would need to ensure that there's consistent set of policies and practices, consistent set of development practices, tooling, and skill sets that could work across all of these various landscapes. And as you see yourself investing across different areas, it is good to start putting together a strategy. And that would essentially start with putting together what sort of technology stack you want to use that remains consistent across various environments, what sort of processes would work, and more importantly, around the security controls as well, because you don't want to have to individually maintain those security controls and then have to audit them periodically to check for any kind of changes. So the sooner you put those controls in place, the better it is to actually for you in terms of an organization strategy. Right. So there's another interesting question that I just saw, which is talking about DevOps practices and why it works for some organizations and not so much for others. So the idea of DevOps practices is generally seen as implementation of some processes and tooling, and people believe that once they put the tooling in place, suddenly your developer efficiency is going to go up, your feature release velocity is going to change significantly. But in order to do that, you have to also bear in mind the cultural shift required for it. The whole idea of DevOps is to actually bring the development and the operations teams together and ensure that there is commonality in their objectives and ensure that they work together. So along with putting the tooling in place, it is important to make sure that there is an assimilation of the context behind the DevOps practices as well. The other aspect of it is to ensure that everything that you can possibly empirically measure in terms of the steps will certainly help. A good example would be to look at number of individual steps that are required to put a piece of code from a developer's desktop to production, and look at which of them actually add value as an incremental step, and how each of those values could either be automated or built upon as in terms of areas that could be merged together, thereby increasing the number of incremental steps that is required to take something to production. But also, one thing that has worked, we've seen with organizations is where people swap roles as well. So we've seen where it has worked very well is when developers sit with operation teams and understand the challenges that operation teams face. Let's say there is an issue with an application which was eventually traced down to a developer forgetting to put a timeout in making an HTTP call, and the connection just hangs forever. That gives developer a much greater appreciation of some of those good health check metrics, because these sort of things are not something that you can typically capture by tooling or by static code analysis, but are good engineering practices which you only realize when you're closer to getting metrics of what it is running in production. This is a good question. It's a question which talks about how if you don't have a big investment in engineering teams and you have multiple vendors for development of apps, how can app modernization help our organization? So one of the big benefits of actually consolidation through app modernization is actually going to in terms of having a single pane of glass from an operational point of view, and being able to visualize how each of your various applications are performing gives you a single view of gathering those metrics, whether it is user interaction data that you want to capture or error rates or failures or things of that nature. That's a good first step in trying to consolidate this, as opposed to when these applications are running in individually hosted environments. The other benefit worth looking at when you are thinking about app modernization is that across various applications that you engage vendors to build and develop, you would have common concerns that each of the vendors individually implement. So let's take authentication for instance. So if you've got 5 different applications, all applications would require a variation of authentication, and unless everyone's diligent about making sure they share the spec across all the vendors, every vendor will go off and implement a different version of the same authentication model, and that creates a lot of wastage. App modernization kind of breaks down the problem into individual capabilities or functionalities that are implemented through what is called microservices. And if you build that portfolio around it, as you spec out a requirement to a vendor to build some application for you, you can call out what your pre-existing capabilities are that they can hook in, and that really simplifies the overall target architecture for applications. But also it helps application developers focus on the business problem unique to the application they're trying to build, rather than addressing the cross-cutting concerns around it. So that is how app modernization could significantly change how you manage your vendor landscape itself. In some cases where there are applications where you did engage a vendor to build an application and kind of it is end of life from a development and evolution point of view, but you do want to have the lights on and keep that application running. Anthos provides the capability of taking that application, mothballing it into a container, and then giving it the same kind of treatment as the modern containerized applications would have. So you would have the same kind of application lifecycle for an old application where you don't want to invest in modernizing or evolving that application further, but it's critical for your business itself. Right, and one last question around the effect of containerization on the system performance itself. So it's important for this to understand. It's important to understand how containerization actually works. So containerization effectively isn't uh, isn't really an additional overload of the overall system. So there is no runtime that supports containerization itself, roughly speaking. Broadly, the way containerization works is that it runs a container as an individual process, and that process is managed through a kernel module itself. So effectively, this is just as much as any other process running in the system. The key thing here is to focus on what is running inside the container and how you manage the process lifecycle inside it. So if you've got a Node.js application that's containerized, it is good to understand how many instances of that process will be running and how many of them would need to be killed in case there is a particular load. Also defining things like threshold metrics as well to say if there is an incidental bug in the code and there's a runaway CPU or RAM, what do you do with the lifecycle of the container itself? So that's kind of the overall impact that you need to bear in mind. The process of containerization itself doesn't have any additional detrimental effect on system performance. All right. Well, with that, we bring today's session to a close. Thank you for all your questions, and I hope you got some useful information through the sessions conducted by my colleagues. And obviously, as always, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any follow-on questions. We'd love to hear from you and work with you together. Thank you.